here. Today we are going to make a curried sweet potato carrot soup with a roast beef and cheddar grilled cheese, and then I'm going to make a golden chai because I've got a little bit of a head cold going on here. So we're going to start out with our soup. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil in our Dutch oven here, and I'm going to turn on my heat to a medium high. And I'm gonna start dicing up one onion. I've got a yellow onion here. I'm gonna cut off my ends, make a slice through, and then get rid of this peel part. And I'm just gonna do a quick dice on it and throw it in my oil. I'm gonna cut it in half, and then I'm gonna cut it into fourths and do a little dice on it. I'm gonna end up blending my soup towards the end to make it nice and creamy. So the smaller the pieces, the easier it will be to blend. Okay, got my onion chopped up. I'm gonna add this to my olive oil that I have heating right now. Oh, we got an escapee. There's always one straggler. And then I'm just gonna make sure that I have all of my onions in my oil so I can start sauteing up as soon as it is heated. And then I'm gonna add in about a teaspoon of minced garlic. Let's see, it's about a teaspoon. And we'll have that and I'll let that start sauteing, and while this is starting to saute, I am gonna prep my carrots and my sweet potatoes. I'm using 2 big sweet potatoes and then just a bowl full of baby carrots. So for my sweet potatoes, I'm gonna start by cutting off the ends of each, and then I'm just gonna do a rough knife peel with it. I find it's much easier to peel sweet potatoes with a knife than with a peeler, just because they have so many ridges and are kind of more oddly shaped than a regular potato. And you really, once you get used to it and peeling it, you don't lose that much of the potato. But the trick is to make sure you cut off a top and a bottom so you have a nice flat surface to rest it on. And then you just follow slowly, like your blade, around the curves of the potato. I'll cut off this. And we're gonna do the same with this one. And I'm pushing pretty firmly with my knife, and I'm holding up here, but you just kind of, you push down, but I'm trying to be as close to the outside as possible. I will say, once you feel comfortable switching of this, peeling sweet potatoes or butternut squash, I use this for that as well, or rutabagas, it's so much easier than trying to use a little handheld peeler. Perfect. And then just add some of these edges, because I don't want any of that skin in there, because sweet potato skin is not very good. Okay, and now I'm just gonna dice these up fairly small because I'm gonna want them to saute up nicely and then cook down quickly with my broth, so I don't have to wait forever on my soup. So I'm gonna just do them in a dice, fairly small like this. So kind of think about a little bit bigger than if you were to make like homemade hash browns. That way these will just cook up fairly quickly in our broth. You could also use butternut squash with this soup, but I find that the sweet potatoes it has a slightly different flavor profile, and they're just a slightly, like a little thicker consistency than with butternut squash. Last week I made a butternut squash. I think the video is on my page, but I do a savory butternut squash with sage and garlic, and that's typically my favorite way of doing butternut squash. But I do it also with this recipe. I'm gonna give my onions a nice stir. And while since I've got my onions are starting to become translucent and yellow, I'm gonna add some of my spices now, because I like to add my spices with the oil and the heat. I'm going to add in some ginger paste. You can always use dried ginger if you wanted. You need about a teaspoon or so, but I'm just gonna get a big squeeze of ginger paste. You could also use fresh ginger. That's about a tablespoon or so. And then I'm gonna use some curry, some yellow curry powder. Give it a shake. I'm probably gonna put in about half a tablespoon of it. I might add some more. And then some turmeric. And about a teaspoon or so of the turmeric as well. And I'm just gonna stir this up into my oils and onions because the oil will help bring out the flavors. The heat in the oil will help bring out the flavors of the curries and the turmeric and the ginger. Well, it already smells good, and you can see my onions are nice and yellow. With these over here, finish up chopping this, and then I will put them in, and then I'm gonna add my carrots right after this. Chop it through. I do find butternut squash is easier to chop up than sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are a bit more starchy and harder, but as long as you cut them thin enough, they'll chop up fairly easy. You could also, if you wanted to, you could roast your sweet potatoes and then add broth and blend. This is just takes a couple dishes out in one less step. There. Stick quick. Perfect. I'm gonna throw these in with my curried onions that I have right here. And I'm going to give them a good stir because I want to make sure I can coat all of these sweet potatoes in the curried onions that I have going here. Perfect. You can really smell the spices. They're starting to really get aromatic with the heat. And make sure when you're doing this, you want to make sure you scrape off the bottom of your Dutch oven the whole time so you don't have any of your spices or anything burn. So I'm making sure I'm really scraping everything so that it comes up and seasons. Turn it down just a little bit. Perfect. And now I'm gonna just dice up my baby carrots just like I did my sweet potatoes. This is about 2 handfuls of baby carrots. You could use full-size carrots or pre-cut carrots if you wanted to. I know you can get like the crinkle cut carrots at the stores. Pop these in. We always have a few that like to jump out on me. Give it a good stir. And I'm going to chop up the rest of my carrots in just a second, but I noticed mine is starting to stick at the bottom, so I'm going to start adding some liquid. I've got 4 cups of water here. I'm going to add this in, and then I'm going to add a heaping spoonful of chicken bouillon. Perfect. And I'm making sure I scrape the bottom of my thing because I want all of those seasonings to come up into the broth. And then I'm going to put in a heaping spoonful of chicken bouillon. And I'm making enough soup. This will be about enough soup for 4 adults, like a serving size. So I'm doing a big scoop of my chicken bouillon. I love this stuff. You could use chicken broth instead of water and bouillon if you wanted. I just feel like the chicken bouillon I can add a little bit more flavor and less water. So I've got my chicken bouillon in there, and it's gonna heat up, and I'm gonna finish chopping up these carrots, and we're gonna let that simmer, and then we're gonna move over to starting our grilled cheese and making our golden chai. I have a little bit of a head cold forming behind my sinuses, and so I like making a golden chai for that. It's just you add some turmeric into it, which has, I guess, some anti-inflammatory whatnot, and then the spices of the chai. For me, it just always helps open up my sinuses and makes me feel better. And then I'm going to use a little bit of honey in it to sweeten it, as well as some ginger, cardamom, and cinnamon spices.
Got some questions about what soup today?
We are making a curried sweet potato and carrot soup. So in here I'll start up, but we sauteed up an onion, and then we added some curry, some ginger paste, and some turmeric. And we're sauteing, or now we're in some broth, some water and chicken bouillon, and now we're simmering it, and then put the rest of the carrots in. And I'm gonna simmer them until they're soft, and then we'll do a quick blend to make it a nice, like, kind of like a bisque almost. But it's a nice, flavorful soup that's fairly healthy. It really just has vegetables in it and broth. So some people like to add a little bit of cream to it. You could add coconut cream too, but I tend to like mine just the way it is, without any cream in it. So I'm gonna give it a good stir, and now we're gonna start prepping our grilled cheese and our chai. So I'm gonna start with my chai over here so I can have my milk steeping in it. I like to use oat milk. So I have some oat milk here, but coconut milk works really great with this as well as any regular milk that you want. It's really your preference. And I'm gonna start out with 3 cups of it. Give it a good shake. I'm also impartial to this brand because it's Swedish, and I find I'm very impartial to anything Swedish because my family's from Sweden. So I'm gonna do 3 cups of oat milk. Again, you can use any milk of your choice. Coconut also works really great with this because it picks up on some of those chai spices. And I'm just gonna put it in my saucepan over here. And I'm gonna start heating it up. And while it's heating up, I'm gonna put in 3 chai tea bags. So this is just the Tazo organic chai. And I'm gonna let it steep as the milk heats up. That will help bring out the flavors. It's pretty much like a cup of, like 1 cup of milk per tea bag. So I'm doing 3 cups, so I'm doing 3. But you could improvise and do more or less if you want. And I'm just kind of wrap them a little bit here so that they don't, let me get them completely submerged. And 1 more. I'm just gonna poke them down so they get there. Okay. I just don't want my tea bags to catch on fire. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna have that heating over high heat, watching it stir it so I don't burn my milk. And now I'm going to prep my grilled cheese. So I'm just gonna give this a nice stir. We're gonna make roast beef and cheddar just because I'm feeling like something homey today. So I'm gonna get 4 slices of sourdough out. I did finish my first sourdough loaf for my starter after my old one molded, but the loaf didn't come out. It was, I think because it's colder right now, it didn't ferment as fast. And so it needs, I think it'll be ready for a new loaf soon. It wasn't as, it didn't rise as much because it wasn't as fermented as I needed it to be. It was still good and delicious. We ate it all. But for making grilled cheese, I want it to be a little bit lighter. And I think this next batch of sourdough that I'm making is better. I guess with it being so cold, my house is a little bit colder than it normally is, and I think it didn't ferment as fast. Especially because we had one day where I woke up and it was like 60 degrees in our house, and apparently somebody had turned off the heat. So it was freezing, and so it was as if the starter had been in like the refrigerator instead of like fermenting nicely on my kitchen counter. So for our grilled cheese, I'm just gonna butter up 1 side of each slice of bread. Just 1 because we just wanna have the end that's facing down on the skillet. I'm using my butter spatula knife thing. If you don't have one of these, you should get one. This one, my friend got it for me in Sweden. And it's just like a little wooden spoon, spatula, knife thing. But it's butter great. All my kids talk about, where'd the butter knife go? Oh, here our soup is bubbling up nicely. You can see that nice golden foam on it. That's just the curries and the spices going there. And we're gonna start assembling our grilled cheese. I'll put them face down over here. I'm gonna try to make my bread slices match up. There we go. And then I'm gonna use some sharp cheddar because I find that cheddar is probably my favorite cheese to go with roast beef. I just feel like the sharpness of the cheddar really pairs well with roast beef. So I'm gonna just lay it there, and I'm gonna make sure I cover, it's probably about like 1.5 slices right here. I'm gonna cover each bit of my bread because I want the cheesiness to melt and cover it up. And then I'm gonna put a thin layer of roast beef on each one. My soup is really bubbling over here, so I'm gonna turn it down some. And give it a good stir. But right now we're just gonna simmer the soup until the vegetables are soft and ready to puree. And then I'm just using some Hillshire refined roast beef because that was just what I grabbed at the store this week. But if you ever do make roast beef at home, you could use some leftover, just cut it slim or thin and then put it on here. So just gonna spread it out, not too thick. If you overload it with meat and stuff like that, then you're gonna wanna do your grilled cheese in the oven because it will take forever for your cheeses to melt because the cold meat will keep the cheese cold. So I just do a thin layer of roast beef on here. And then I'm gonna do another layer of cheese, and then I'll put my bread on. I'm gonna turn my skillet on to a medium, like around a 6, so a little bit higher than a medium. And it's gonna start heating up and melt it. I like to, when I'm doing my grilled cheese, I flip them twice, so it's not just one side, then the other. I flip them twice because I want that cheese to really melt. And so the first flip, you've heated everything up and it's starting to melt, so then you can heat it and sit there, and it's that residual heat. And then the next flip is when I get that nice golden color on it. I found that method works best for me. Otherwise you end up burning your bread, but your inside isn't as gooey as you wanted. Also, a quick tip, if you end up toasting your bread too much before your cheese melts, pop it in the microwave for like 15 seconds and it will get all gooey for you. Okay, so I've got these making. I'm gonna pop my pieces of bread on and I'm gonna let them work, and we're gonna work on our chai over here. I'm gonna add some spices to our chai to make it a golden chai. Pop these over here. And I need my turmeric because that's my secret ingredient over here. I'll clear up some space. Okay, we're all done with this, so I can put my trash. Okay, so I'm gonna add in, first, I'm gonna add in a 1.5 teaspoons of turmeric. And turmeric has, I guess, some agrodaic properties. It has some anti-inflammatory to it, which is why I'm using it right now, because I'm hoping it will help with my head cold. So I've got a teaspoon there, and I'm just gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon more. And this is what's gonna give it your golden color. That's why it's called a golden chai. And then I'm going to do a teaspoon of cinnamon. We use a lot of cinnamon in our house, so I always just buy it in bulk because the little ones don't even last us a month. Also, when you're using spices, fresh spices work better. If you've had your spices in your cabinet for a while, they'll dull. It doesn't mean they're bad, it just means you're gonna need to use more of it to do the flavor. And then I have some dried ginger, some ground ginger. Ugh. And I'm gonna put a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger in here. This is gonna give it a little kick to it because ginger is pretty spicy. And then my favorite, cardamom. I'm gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of cardamom in it. This is just such a lovely spice. I think I have fond memories of it because in Sweden they serve a lot of desserts with cardamom in it. So growing up, we had a lot of cardamom cake, cardamom cookies. So it's just a flavor that reminds me of my childhood. And last but not least, I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'll pour it in here. Then we're gonna whisk. There we go, I'm starting to see a nice little bubble on my thing. So I'm gonna turn my milk down real quick and actually lift it up because I can see it's gonna bubble. 1 second. One thing with milk is once it gets hot, it will start to bubble and it will foam faster than you can stir it. I'm gonna get a whisk out and I'm just gonna really whisk the chai and everything together. You see how it's got a nice golden froth to it. And then we're gonna add some honey for our sweetness in just a second. But I wanna let these kind of stoop. I'm gonna take it off the heat for a second while I get my burner turned down. I'm gonna turn it all the way down to low. So I just want a little bit of heat, but not too much. Perfect. Nice. Caught my tea bag there. Good. Okay, we're gonna let that simmer nice and low. And I'm gonna check on, give a good stir here, and I'm gonna check on my grilled cheese. I hear a little bit of sizzle, but I think that's just the butter. Here, doing. So let me flip it up, look at it. Okay, you see how my butter is melting? It's perfect. Still a few, I'm gonna wait until I have got a light golden color on it, then I'm gonna flip it, get a light golden color on that side, and then I'll flip it for the true golden color. Perfect. You can see it's really starting to really froth up nicely here. So I'm gonna pull out my chai tea bags because you don't wanna over stoop. And I'm just gonna turn it off and let it simmer. And now I'm going to add in my honey. So you can add as much honey as you want to sweeten your chai. I'm gonna add in about 2 tablespoons, but I'm just gonna eye it with my squeeze. But if you wanna measure, it's about 2 tablespoons. So I've got like about 1 and 2. You could also use brown sugar if you wanted to sweeten it, or you could, if you like it straight up spices and milk, you don't have to sweeten it at all. But I feel like a chai, you want a nice little sweetness to it. And honey is also great, especially if you get local honey. It's supposed to help you with your allergies because the like when the bees collect it, they get all the different flowers and it gives you like a microdosing. Okay, so now our golden chai is ready and nice. Let's look at our soup, see if we are ready to blend some of this. I'm gonna get a fork and I'm gonna poke to see if they're soft enough for blending. If you blend too early, then they won't, oh, look at that, perfect. Smush right away. Let me check out a carrot. Nice, we got the good smushes on the carrots too. Okay, so I'm gonna get this ready to start blending. But I hear this sizzling over here, so I just wanna double check, make sure my burner's not too hot. Oh good, I got a nice golden. So this is what my first flip is. It's got a beginning golden, it's gonna help melt the cheese and heat up the meat. This guy still needs to sit a little. I'm gonna turn, so that guy gets a little more heat. And now we're gonna start with blending up our soup. You could use a food processor if you wanted, or a bigger blender. I just have a Ninja, it works. I'm gonna taste, yes.
Asking what time is it, and yes, it's lunchtime.
Yes, so it is, right now it's what, 1:55? Mm-hmm. So I'm making a lunch for the adults, and it will be a little bit of an afternoon snack for my little ones. They're taking a nap right now. Perfect, doesn't need any more salt or anything else. Okay, so I'm gonna get a ladle, and I'm going to ladle out my veggies into here, and I'm gonna blend them into pieces. Sometimes I like to blend it all super smooth, and sometimes I like to leave just little chunks in it to have a little texture in it. So we'll see towards the end. Fill it about halfway, and then I'm just gonna put some of the broth in it, and we're gonna blend this up into a nice puree, and then we'll pour it back in, and we'll do it over again. Okay, give it a little blend. You see, it made it into a nice...
Ah, someone commented they're making the sourdough biscuits today.
Oh, good.
From yesterday's video.
They were delicious. They didn't last long. So it makes a nice, smooth, velvety broth. So I'm just gonna pour it in there and I'm just gonna keep doing it in batches until I have all of it blended up, which will then help the spices really marry together as well. But it's gonna be like a bisque when we're done. It's not gonna be a brothy soup, but it's gonna be a sweet potato and carrot bisque. And there we go. I'm gonna flip my grilled cheese over here because I hear it sizzling. See, perfect, nice golden. We're gonna cook it up. We're gonna let it melt. And it's golden on this side, and then we'll do one more flip to make sure we get all of it cooked all the way through and a good melt on our grilled cheese. And it will pair beautifully with our soup. And you guys could always do this with a food processor, but if you've ever gone through the process of cleaning a food processor, it's just such a pain. So these blender, I can just pop them in the dishwasher and they clean up really easily versus the food processor. It's so awkward and bulky. There we go. Scoop out this last bit. And I'm gonna get a slotted spoon for the rest of it so I can get some of my bigger pieces. There we go. I'm gonna turn down my heat to low over here because it's getting nice and hot. And sometimes what you can do is you can also, if you make like a creme fraiche or do a like a seasoned cream, you can put that in here as well. But again, I like mine just the way it is with no cream in it. I think the sweet potatoes are such a smooth vegetable that they give you enough creaminess.
You got a question that could the heat from the soup ever mess with the blender, like melt it or anything?
No, because it really doesn't get that hot. Like I can hold this bottom and it's hot to touch, but it's not burning hot. Now it might be, if you had a glass one, I'm gonna give these a quick flip. Look at that nice color. Hey buddy, you come and join us? You got your dinosaur?
Yeah.
Oh, you got Steggy? But no, it doesn't really blend. I used to use a bigger blender, but it broke. Like you know how if you ever run an electronic appliance too long and the engine burns out? That's what I did with it. And I have just yet to replace it. And this Ninja, we make a lot of smoothies. So the big bottles of it work just fine for it. And I can buy like extra bottles on Amazon. So it works well.
Mom.
Yeah. You got your Steggy over there, buddy? Okay, I'm gonna blend this. It's gonna have to be a loud noise, buddy, okay?
The noise.
I will say make sure you screw your lid on tight because if you don't, it will squirt out the bottom. And also don't overfill your blender bottles because it will squirt out. The pressure of blending will squirt it out. Nice, and we are just about done. I think our grilled cheeses are almost done. And look at this one, I got a lot more of the veggies in here, but we'll put it in there, really scoop it out. But it's a nice, thick bisque, which is what I love when I get a butternut squash, or this is a sweet potato and carrot. So they're similar, it's a little bit thicker than a butternut squash. But this works, it blends, the sweet potatoes I think go really well with the curry and the ginger and the turmeric. So I have our creamy bisque right here, and it is all done. And let me check these grilled cheeses on this side. Oh, look at that. That is perfect. See if we got it perfect. So I'm going to turn my skillet off, and I am going to plate our food and my chai. So I'll get a bowl, and I need a mug for my chai. Okay. Look at this guy. Perfect. We've got a nice crispy edge around it. And now I'm going to do a nice scoop of our soup. It's got a nice thickness to it. Perfect. we have that. And there's my mug. And I'm gonna get a ladle for my chai, which is perfect. It's been really cold here in Nashville the last couple of days. We've had a couple of days down in the single digits, and whew, you know, I'm originally from Iowa, but I am not ready for this cold weather anymore. Okay. Delicious. So we'll do our little cut with our things so you guys can see the good melt on our grilled cheese. You see that cheddar cheese has really melted. And then my favorite part about grilled cheese and soup is the dip. Well, thank you for joining us today. I do live cooking shows every day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Feel free to comment if you'd like to see some new recipes or different recipes. I'd love to try them out. Thanks for joining us.